Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Miasin and welcome to my Qliphort deck profile. So this was actually suggested by someone who commented on my videos, so shoutouts to you. I actually forgot. I mean, a lot of people actually requested the Qliphort deck. I don't know why. Maybe it's just, I thought it was gonna be like super boring, like, oh, you just sit on floodgates and hopefully it gets you there, but it's a little bit more than that. This deck is pretty fun, so friendly reminder to subscribe to my channel if you aren't already, and yeah, let's just jump right into the deck profile. Alright, so first things first, we have 3 copies of Qliphort Monolith, which is the skill 1. So I used the main deck copies of Trampolinx. I think I was playing 2, but then I decided to go back to 3 because it's not because necessarily it's better than Trampolinx, but because it's a monster that you can actually tribute summon during your opponent's turn, so sometimes even the worst case scenario is really not that bad. So I felt like I'd rather have like something that works better with my engine, and Trampolinx is only good when you're Pendulum summoning and when you have Qliphort Scout, so it's just kind of relying on too much, and Monolith is like a good skill anyways, so you know, and also it does conflict with Trampolinx, like you can't use both, which is kind of bait. I mean, you kind of can, but not really. Anyways, so 3 Scout, of course, this was like one of the best things that this deck got with the previous ban list, alongside 3 copies of Sacrifice again, and now, you know, with 3 Summoner's Art, you're getting access to Scout quite often. 3 Stealth, which is pretty much like the best monster to tribute summon in the entire deck. It's kind of the one that just does the most. Like, honestly, obviously, if you had, you know, I mean, no, you can bounce back your own Scout, so you don't even need Trampolinx to abuse Stealth the most, but you can actually, like, chain block your opponent by putting, like, Carrier on Chainlink 1 and then Stealth on Chainlink 2, so your opponent can't even respond to the Carrier on Chainlink 1, so you have, like, double bounce and it's just devastating. Then, of course, 3 Shell. This one is, like, obviously not as good as, I want to say, Disc and Stealth, but it's still, like, decent. You it's just, like, more of a filler card, honestly. It's not necessarily, you know, the best. And then Disc, you know, once you summon Disc, it's kind of like OTK, so it's just, I want to say it's the most aggressive one during your own turn, and Stealth is just, like, the best one for resources and the best one to interrupt your opponent, because we are trying to summon Stealth during our opponent's turn as well. Then, of course, 3 Helix. This one's obvious, alongside 3 Carrier, which I think is the best, like, normal summon Qliphort of the bunch, because yeah, even though you don't play any level 4 lower monsters, the Qliphort monsters can be normal summon. It's just that they become, like, worse. They become like 1800 attack vanillas in a way, but skill drain actually makes them better, which is hilarious. Yeah, anyways, Tenacity, because as you can see, there are actually 9 cards that have the Monarch stats. So there's Monolith, Helix, and Carrier. So if you can reveal one of those 9 monsters, you can actually search for Escalation or Monarch Stormforth. So I actually used to play multiple copies of Escalation, but I think it's kind of incorrect because it does have like redundancy, like it's just like not good in multiples, and I just didn't really want that, so yeah. Moving on, we do play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance because you're really desperate to draw. And like Upstart and Into the Void are not draw cards, they're just deck thinning cards. They don't really get you like bonus cards, whereas Indulgence actually gets you 2 new cards. Well, so it's basically a +1, right? Whereas Upstart is a +0 and Into the Void is like a really bad +0. It's like a situational +0 that can make you lose in the end phase if things just don't go your way. And it does clash very hard, like a lot with Escalation, because you really need that card like on your end phase, and this deck is really trying to like set up Escalation during our opponent's turn. So even though we only play technically 2 copies of Escalation, the odds of opening it turn 1 are quite high because we play 3 Indulgence with 2 duality, so yeah. And also a lot of like searching cards, so you can actually, I mean, when I see Summoner's Art, I basically just see 6 Scouts. Honestly, that's just what I see. And even if I have 1 Scout and 1 Summoner's Art, I go Scout Search, and then I don't even use Summoner's Art this turn, because I like it doesn't matter. Like they might actually destroy Scout, and then at least I have a way to access Scout for next turn. So that's just more impactful, I feel like. Always having access to the Scout instead of trying to be greedy and search cards that don't necessarily do anything, so yeah. 3 Stormforth, because unless you're Pendulum summoning 1 monster from your extra deck, you don't really summon from your extra deck that much. It's like a stun version of Pendulums. It's weird. And then 3 Sacrifice, which is the obvious one. It has like basically the Kaiser Seahorse-esque effect, where your Qliphort monsters are treated as 2 tributes when you want to tribute summon for a Qliphort, and also your Qliphort monster cannot be destroyed by battle. It gains 300 attack, and when it is sent from the when Sacrifice is sent from the field to the grave, you search your deck for any Qliphort monster. So that's another way of getting access to Scout when your hand isn't the best. And since you have like, you know, so many, I mean, you're pretty much playing like a 37 card deck with, you know, so many good guards. Honestly, it's just really nice. Sacrifice is almost on the level of Summoner's Art. Obviously not as good, but sometimes you actually want to search the Sacrifice, and sometimes it's very relevant because you can have Sacrifice with only like a carrier, and then use Escalation during your opponent's turn to summon like Stealth, and then you bounce 2 monsters and you search a card and your opponent can't do anything because Stealth is the highest chain link and he can't respond to the highest chain link, so naturally he can't respond to the lower chain links since you actually get to form your chains with the from the trigger before your opponent has a chance to do anything. So yeah. And then the Laser Clip, I'm only playing this because it's searchable, but it's not that good, honestly. Might actually move to the idea section. Depends, we're gonna see where we actually go from there. One Escalation, already explained this. One Recreate, it's searchable once again, so even though it doesn't have the best effect, the fact that it's searchable is actually very, very important. And Skill Drain is just, it's self-explanatory. A deck that actually benefits from Skill Drain is ew. Oh my god. The extra deck, most of it is obviously a joke. I don't want to explain anything except Draglubion, Numeron, and Genius. So Draglubion into Numeron is kind of like the new Utopia double in a way, because it's kind of just a quick way to just kill your opponent in one shot with one rank 8. And obviously it's kind of hard to make a rank 8, but you can negate your own scales with Qliphort Genius. So if you can bounce your own scale with Stealth when you tribute summon it, then you might actually find it, like, be able to make it like an Xyz under like your Qliphort scales, because they do restrict you under Qliphort summons only, which is very bait. So Draglubion is definitely very hard to summon. Harbinger is definitely as a joke. You know, it's supposed to be attached under Numeron, but sometimes whatever, it might come up, but you don't really like touch your extra deck at all. And the Xyz are even like more of like jokes. Like, you can play multiple copies of the Draglubion package. Same thing with the links. I mean, come on. Like, when are you ever summoning like Borreload, Access Code, etc.? Definitely not in this deck. Hell no. 3 Genius, however, this is the one monster that you might actually summon, because even under your scale you can still summon Qliphort Genius because it has the word Qliphort in it, and it has a really, like, an actual legit effect. Like, you can turn just very bad hands with like 4 scales into like something that actually plays Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually, Link Spider wouldn't be good in this deck. Imduck wouldn't be like the best, even though you can like Pendulum summon them, because, you know, they're like very hard to summon. But yeah, like, if you can just summon 2 monsters and then make Genius and then next turn Pendulum summon them back, you can search Scout or search Stealth and then get your stuff going. And then from there, it's really hard to lose. Just very, like, you really need that turn 1 like survival, basically. It's comparable to a lot of decks already built in the past. And Masquerena is another joke. It has absolutely nothing to do with the deck. So yeah, literally nothing that you even summon. Just 3-6 monsters maybe, but that's it. The rest is just meh. And then, you know, the idea sections, the card that are actually good. Trampolinx is definitely a big one. If Joker was a thing, I probably would play 3 Joker with 1 Trampolinx, because your normal summon isn't that like relevant anyways. You can just kind of Pendulum summoning instead. So yeah, I don't know. And then, you know, 2 Escalation if you want to play more, if you feel like 2 isn't enough already. And then the Solemn Package with Lose 1 Turn. I mean, I feel like you don't need the Solemn Brigade anymore. Like in 2020, it's just, once again, I feel like people who lose to Evenly and Lightning Storm, they kind of just, it's almost as if they chose to lose to those cards. Like, on game 2 and 3, nothing forces you to go first every single time, especially when it's so obvious that your opponent expects you to go first, so you just, sometimes making them go first and just making them drown on useless side deck cards is correct. Like, they go first, they draw Evenly and Lightning Storm, they go, oh damn, I can't do anything, and then they pass on to you, and then you can actually either OTK, which is not that hard, even for a Qliphort deck, it's not that hard, or you can just play very conservatively, and they're just playing the game super slowly. So yeah, Judgment, I think, is just a really, really bad card. Like, Anti-Spell would have been better, but then, you know, Anti-Spell in a Pendulum deck, kind of stupid. And, you know, Imperial Order, also kind of stupid. It shuts down your Scout, your 16 spells. Not the best play out there. Imperial Iron Wall, I suppose, but, like, it only covers Evenly and some combo decks in a way. But I don't know. Nah, I'm not too big of a fan. And Lose 1 Turn is just, it's too old. Like, we got to a point where it's easy to play, like, around or through those cards. And, you know, there are more back row removal cards than Floodgates in the game, I feel like. Well, good Floodgates. Because there are a lot of bad Floodgates that we just can't play, and a lot of bad Floodgates that just don't synergize with this deck. I mean, you can play Unending Nightmare, which I don't really consider a Floodgate necessarily, but I don't know. It was just my thoughts on my take on the deck. I think like the Monarch E version like of Qliphort with just like a very bare minimal engine is good. You can't play domain because I mean, you can, but like it does nothing because you can't domain lock because obviously you're gonna, even if you cut your entire extra deck, once a pendulum monster is like leaves the field, goes to the pendulum, like to the extra deck, even though it's not like face down, it still like stops domain from having the full effect, so it's really, really bad. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say for this deck profile. If you have any comments or feedback, let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, really cool deck is coming up next, by the way, so make sure you're tuned in for that. And yeah, subscribe so you don't want to miss it. And that's pretty much all I had to say, though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace!